This is your guide to book publishing. Everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask with your host, Dr. Judith Briles. On the show today, you'll find out where book publishing is going and how to take advantage of it. How to identify and avoid publishing predators. What opportunities are emerging as the book trade evolves in new forms. How to avoid losing money and much, much more. Join us now as a variety of publishing pros will deliver insights and strategies to take the author to the next level of publishing. It's your guide to book publishing. Everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask. Brought to you by AuthorU and the Book Shepherd. And now, here's your host, Dr. Judith Briles.
Well, welcome to another edition of AuthorU, your guide to book publishing. And I have to tell you, I was off for a couple of weeks, but you didn't know it because I pre-recorded 2 sessions that I would encourage, if you haven't gotten to them, please do. It was a part 1 and part 2 on crowdfunding for authors and writers. Some of the strategies, the timelines, the essentials, step by step in how to do it. It's all based on my brand new book that is just available on Amazon, which is called The Crowdfunding Guide for Authors and Writers. So with that, we're going to leap from crowdfunding because there's another form. And maybe you want to think about doing a crowdfunding to support this, but it's audiobooks. And we've done a few shows on audios, on the do-it-yourself, and we've never really got into having maybe someone who is a professional, as in a professional who's done it, for himself, but also for others. So we have a voice with us. And that's always good to know what sources, what are the costs? How do you evaluate? Where do you go? And maybe even the question is, should your book be an audio format? So we're going to deep dive into all of that. With me today will be a really professional voice expert. He's a 4-time winner of the Edge Studios National Script Recording Contest. Richard Rieman has a background in radio news, including the RKO Radio Networks in New York City, WTOP in Washington, D.C., WLS and WMAQ Radio in Chicago. So he's been on all the major platforms. So what we're going to do, we're going to bring a little bit of, it's interesting, I've had Ireland all around me. I'm going to be speaking at the Irish Writers Conference next summer. And as he says, with a smiling Irish eyes and a rich, warm voice, please welcome Richard Rieman to our show today. And let's get into Richard talking about just what one of the challenges that an audiobook narrator really goes through, and how do you become professionally trained to even do that if someone would want to consider it?
Well, first, thank you, Dr. Briles, Judith, for inviting me onto the program. Great to be here. Yes, it's a major challenge to get into the audiobook and / voiceover world. Even if you're a trained broadcaster like I was, I was good at reading out loud, and that's what my first voice acting coach told me. You read out loud very well. Too bad that's not what voiceover and audiobook narration is all about.
Well, I think a lot of people think it is. Yeah, I think a lot of people really are under that illusion that is exactly.
Just because you're a good-looking person doesn't mean you're a good actor. And it's the same in the voice world. You may have a very good voice, but unless you know how to use that instrument, you're not going to go very far. So I realized right off the bat I needed professional training, and I got mine from Melissa Liebert, an Emmy Award-winning voice person in Washington, D.C., where I was living at the time. And, she had to tear me down, basically, completely to rebuild me into the mode of thinking, voice acting, and emotion, and the difference between just reading the words out loud as written and feeling the emotions behind the words. And that really is the key to the performance. It's subtle sometimes. You don't always have to shout and be a radio announcer doing car commercials anymore. And especially if you get into fiction, The challenges there are exciting and tremendous. It's a completely different world from the nonfiction world of, a how-to book or, a personal book about personal improvement. So that was the real challenge, was getting my mindset to where I realized that the difference between, just like the difference between authors and narrators, why, as you mentioned, not all authors can narrate their own books. Mm-hmm. It's because you look at it completely differently. It's not just the words on the page. It is the emotions behind them. If you say, there's a right way to do it and a wrong way to do it, or you can say, there's a right way to do it or a wrong way to do it. I mean, it's subtle sometimes, but it's the difference between reading out loud and actually narrating.
Now, I'm going to assume, Richard, that the narration of a nonfiction is going to be easier than a fiction. Am I wrong? Or because I'm just thinking if you're doing all the accents and the variations, and there's a different emotional factor that occurs in fiction.
Yes, it is easier to do nonfiction. I started out doing exclusively nonfiction, some books about how to sell on eBay, or the history of radio, or some biographies, basically. And it was really easier to really start out that way because you speak in usually one voice, the narrator's voice. Mm-hmm. And that is much easier than getting into the acting world, which it really is with fiction, where I have to do, today I was recording a book and I had to do 6 different voices in one conversation. So it's quite the challenge.
That's a challenge. That is a challenge. So how do you prep for that? And let me ask you this: how many times do you have to do things over?
Well, each hour of finished audio, the rule is it's going to take you 6 hours to complete, and that's recording. It's almost a 2-for-1, 2 hours to record an hour of audio, because you're going to want to reread things, you're going to stumble, you might need a water break, all those things that go into recording. And then add 4 hours of editing it and editing out all the coughs and mistakes and pauses and breaths and things like that, and also mastering it so that it's ready for the audiobook market. So, it takes a bit of time. But in to your question about how do you prepare for the characters in fiction, I use some tips I've been given to create characters in my head and sometimes on paper, where I will assign maybe an actor's face to that character, or I will make notes that this character has an Irish accent and he's gruff. And sometimes I'll go ahead and practice that, listening to YouTube videos or other places where I can find someone who sounds like that. The fun parts, though, that I get are I do science fiction, and having a variety of alien voices. That's a lot of fun.
So, Richard, are you telling me you too can speak Klingon?
Yeah, that's you stay. Yeah, it's really a fun world. But as I said, I started out in nonfiction, and that's where most of the titles that self-published authors, might start off with a nonfiction title. And a lot of that goes through, we're going to talk about where to get published, goes through the Audio Creation Exchange, ACX. And we can talk about getting into that.
Well, you're a graduate of the ACX Audiobook Masterclass. So what's that?
That is a special class for people who really want to get to the highest level of narration on ACX. It is a to-do class on everything that is involved in the production of the audiobook, from the time that you receive the script until the time that you master it yourself and become a master voice on ACX, which means that you are experienced. You've done 20, 25 audiobooks. You're one of the people who will charge more, perhaps, than the typical person starting out on ACX. But it means that I've gotten, hours and hours and hours of training. That was actually a 2-month class taught by David Lawrence the 17th, who's one of the top voiceover people, and Dan O'Day, who is a former radio person who is also very big in the voiceover community.
Mm-hmm. Well, of course, what you would love to have is all our listeners say, oh my gosh, I'm going to hire this guy to be my voice and do all that. And that doesn't always happen. But are there a couple of tricks of the trade that for people who are, for our listeners who and authors who are thinking of doing this themselves, that they should jump over this hurdle and master it before they even think of it?
When you say jump over the hurdle to record their own audiobook?
Right. There's if they decide they're going to do this themselves versus, say, hire someone to do it. And I do want to get into different ways to hire to do this, because I know there are variables here. But what are some of the ones that, there are some people that do have a distant voice, maybe, or a really good voice, but let's say it's not trained. That maybe a few things.
There's the technical side, which can be covered if you hire a producer, say through ACX or even locally. I work with the Denver Media Center recording studios, and they're very good at working with people who are first-timers, who haven't done this. And you get a good audio engineer, who will coach you, who will say, why don't you read that a little slower or a little faster? One of the great things is if you've written your own book, you are familiar with with what you've written, with the content, and so you know how you want to relate it to. Okay,
hold that, David. Yeah, hold that. Richard, we're going to take a very quick break, and we'll be right back.
This is your guide to book publishing. Everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask. With your host, Dr. Judith Briles. And we'll be right back with more great information right after these.
Many of us have dreamed of writing a book.
Some of us even have.
Then the hard work starts.
You'll need an editor.
Who will design the cover or typeset the pages?
Who will format the ebook?
If you're a business owner, consultant, or coach with a serious message and expertise to share, the team of experts at 1106 Design can guide you through the maze.
They've helped more than 1,000 authors create top-quality books and avoid the not-so-reputable self-publishing companies.
Learn more at 1106design.com.
Then call Michelle at 602-866-3226. 1106 Design.
Is there a book in you or another? AuthorU will show you how to create, develop, and publish your book without being hoodwinked. If you already have a book out, you'll find a supportive and brainstorming community that's connected and creative no matter where you live. AuthorU brings in national experts for its book camps and annual author extravaganza held each May. It has regular meetings and delivers webinars for its members on timely topics. Through AuthorU's extensive network, members enjoy exclusive benefits, including significant discounts for a variety of services necessary to publishing. The Resource, its online book publishing news magazine, is content-heavy and it's free. If you want to create a book that has pizzazz, punch, and panache, AuthorU is for you. If you're a hobbyist or a casual author, it's not. Join AuthorU today through its website at AuthorU.org. Follow AuthorU on Twitter at AuthorU and on Facebook at AuthorU, where timely author and publishing tips and articles are posted daily. AuthorU, where the author goes to become seriously successful.
Internet Radio Network. Radio with a cutting edge.
First impressions are everything in the world of book publishing. Whether your book is an ebook, a print version, or both, your book cover needs to pop, sizzle, and sparkle to immediately capture the attention of your audience. And your book's interior needs to be just as dynamic and reflect the professionalism your readers demand. Nick Sellinger of NZ Graphics has won numerous national and international book awards for his cover designs and interior layouts. With over 20 years of experience in graphic design, he knows what it takes to create award-winning books and the many promotional pieces that authors need, such as posters, banners, postcards, one-sheets, business cards, logos, and more. Visit ncgraphics.com and see what authors and publishers have to say about their award-winning books and how NZ Graphics can make your book the success it was meant to be. That's nzgraphics.com.
Welcome back to your guide to book publishing. Everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask. If you want to write and publish a book, if you want to be successful as an author, your guide to book publishing, everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask, is for you. Stay tuned and you'll hear about statistics, scenarios, and strategies on what to do now to get you published. So let's get back to the show. And here again is your host, Dr. Judith Briles.
Well, it's supposedly getting closer to summer, but I'm telling you, here in Colorado, we think we live in Portland. It is cool, it's overcast, and it rains every day. So what can I say? But today, we don't want to rain on your book, and we don't want to rain on your voice. Our topic is really giving your book a voice. Should you? And then how do you go about doing it? So with us is Richard Rieman, who is an expert voice, professionally trained voice narrator, and has done his own books as well as the books of many, many others. And I asked him off the air if he had a favorite one. It was when he was a pirate. So can you imagine what fun he could be jumping through the air on that one with that? So, Richard, what kind of numbers? I mean, I know ACX is one of the big ones that does the recording. You've mentioned it several times. How many books have they have been created through their studios?
They've created several 100,000 books at minimum going through there. I'm just looking right now. There are 2,366 titles available for narration right now on ACX. Out of that, at least I would estimate 100 per day find narrators or, have the author narrating it themselves and make it onto audible.com, amazon.com, and iTunes, because all the ACX platform books go to those three places.
So when you say that there are 2,000 books available for narration, are they looking for someone to claim them and saying, I want to narrate your book? Is that what is that what it means?
They are open for auditions for narrators, or in some cases they're posted by the author themselves, and they have to actually go through the process of putting it up on ACX, but they'll say in the notes that I am going to narrate, or we have found a narrator for this volume. So it's really a simple process for doing it that way, if that's the way you want to go. Recording your own book, once again, where we left off, that's the real challenge. Is a good exercise. Sit and read a book out loud. Go to a small room with a light on and read your favorite book or your book out loud for at least 2 hours. And if you think you can do that and do that well in front of a microphone while you're paying for studio time, while you're paying for an engineer, then you have a chance to actually narrate your own audiobook. But if you can't do that, and you'll find that it's a challenge, then maybe you should turn it over to the professionals. It's the same as designing a book cover. You can design it yourself, but sometimes it actually is worth it for the most professional product that you want to get out there. This is your baby. you want it to be the best it can be, is to get professionals, at least for the editing side, because, building your own home studio, we can spend an hour on that easily, getting your own equipment, all of that. But if you go into a studio and record it and get it to where you think it will be good enough to sell on Audible or Amazon, remember that you are competing with all of these professionally created titles.
So when you go into a studio, let me ask you about the engineer. What exactly does the engineer do? If I go into a studio like ACX, what will my engineer, is he or she going to be editing for me, or is that another animal?
Yeah, you go into a local studio, for instance, Denver Media Center, where I go, and, Taylor, the engineer, you will sit in a booth with your script, either hard copy or, if you bring a digital format and read off that. And, he will set the audio levels for you. He will record, the different chapters for you. He will set all the levels properly. You can pay him to edit it. Normally this will cost you. I'm sure that's the question everybody has.
Not only will it cost me, but what will it cost?
Yeah, it's between $50 and $150 an hour is normal in the Denver market, for instance, for a recording studio. And that's just simply to record. The editing is extra after that. And as I said, it's going to take 6 hours of usually to pay for 1 hour of spoken word audio. And, as far as how many hours your book is going to be, there are places you can just plug it in on Google and say, 12,000 words equals so many minutes, that type of thing. But it's going to cost you that much just to have somebody record it. Getting on the ACX platform, once you have that recording, the chapters all, in place, and you've got MP3 files, which are what are going to be used on ACX. That process is not that difficult. ACX at acx.com is very good. They were created by Amazon and Audible for the process of getting more audiobooks out there to the public. Amazon wants to sell more books. They want to sell more audiobooks. So they make it as easy as possible. So if you record it yourself, you go on ACX, first of all, you need the audio rights. You have to make sure you have the audio rights to your book.
Oh, good idea.
You need the audio rights. In that contract, it better say you have the audio rights, not your publisher, because that is a mistake people make. Creating an ACX account is easy. You want to claim the best performing ASIN that you have, the version for ACX. You may have an ebook, a paperback, a hardcover, whatever is the best seller. That's what you want to use when you list that book on ACX, because the metadata that goes with that, how many books you've sold, where it stands in the different rankings, in categories and subcategories, that's important. So if your paperback outsells your hardcover, or your ebook is the best thing you have, make sure you use that ASIN when you're putting in that on ACX. And of course, if you decide to do it yourself, there are some technical things about uploading the files, but it is, if you're computer savvy at all, it's really not that difficult to do. The real challenge in doing it yourself is the acting part, the performance part, and making sure that is the highest quality. And for fiction, very, very, very few fiction authors try to attempt to do their own books. Stephen King once tried to read his own, and it just doesn't work out. They have the characters in their heads. They can't get them, off the page. and into audio very well, because they're not actors, and you really have to have some sort of acting training to do the fiction part. But for nonfiction, it's easier.
I'm really surprised that Stephen King would even attempt that, because he doesn't have a glorious voice. That you'd want to listen to.
He doesn't act in his movies, and he doesn't try to narrate his audiobooks.
When you go back to I put down like number one way to determine if you can do book narration is you lock yourself up in a corner somewhere with a light and just your book and start talking it for 2 hours. That's a challenge, and I should tell everyone that is a great way to find some mistakes in your book too. When you read out loud, it's very different than just reading, because you're forced to actually form the words with your mouth, and sometimes it doesn't work. So it's a great tip to do. With audio exchange, I'm interested. I haven't done anything with ACX, so I think I'm going to play with that. That'll be a format that I'd like to play with and see what goes on. So if you put out to get a narrator, how does one go about doing that?
Well, it's actually very simple. You take 5 minutes of your manuscript and you post that with obviously a picture of the cover of your book and a little bit about your book, a description, and you find the proper category to put it in. Even breaking down nonfiction, they have many categories of nonfiction, and you basically just list it on ACX. And say that it's open for audition, and you will receive probably, I'd say the average is 50 to 100 auditions for a book.
Whoa!
It depends very much on how much you're willing to pay.
Wow!
Because there are the better, the more you pay, the better the auditions are going to be.
All right, so let's hold that, Richard. Let's hold that. We're going to come back. So we're listening to AuthorU, your guide to book publishing. With me is Richard Rieman, and we're talking about how to create a stellar audiobook. This is Judith Briles.
This is your guide to book publishing. Everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask. With your host, Dr. Judith Briles. And we'll be right back with more great information right after these.
Since 1987, Color House Graphics has set the standard for quality book production. Whether you decide to print a small quantity of books or need a large print run, depend on Color House to help you. You'll receive professional help and advice the moment you reach one of our representatives. If you mention hearing about us on your guide to book publishing, Judith Briles, we will provide you a discount on the first order you place. To speak with a project manager, call us toll-free at 800-454-1916 or visit us at www.colorhousegraphics.com.
This is the TogiNet Radio Network, broadcasting quality programming to the world.
When Ned Thompson and Harry Shore started Thompson Shore in 1972, they believed employees with great character would make up the best company. They were right. They hired people who were not only experts in bookmaking, but who were obsessed with quality and delivering exceptional customer service. Almost 40 years later, Thompson Shore remains a 100% employee-owned company. Ned and Harry knew that successful customer projects are a direct result of empowered employees. We specialize in all books for large and small publishers. Creating beautiful and well-made books, we're dedicated to pleasing our customers by making the experience a good one from start to finish. The personal touch we have with our customers allows us to be innovative in solving their most difficult challenges. Our platform also ensures that we can remain flexible to meet our customers' unique needs and expectations. Our marketing kit can create buzz for your title, Enhancing the Promotion of Your Book During Infancy. When you need to test the market to gauge your future sales, we can provide digitally printed books that will transition seamlessly into a larger offset run. From ebook to hard copy to delivery, our skillful customer service teams are at the ready to answer your most pressing question. At Thompson Shore, we know that making the highest quality books requires more than just best technologies. It requires superior customer service, professionalism to the trade, and commitment to environmental and social values. With these standards of excellence in place, you can be sure that we will always help you put your best book forward.
Welcome back to your guide to book publishing. Everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask. Coming up, you'll hear more about statistics, scenarios, and strategies on what to do now to get you published. So let's get back to the show. And here again is your host, Dr. Judith Briles.
Well, at the halfway mark, I always like to talk about some of the things with our sponsors or the connections with the AuthorU community. And we are now into countdown for the early bird ending for the Publishing at Sea working vacation cruise we do every year. The dates are January 24th through 31st next year, and we depart from Fort Lauderdale on the beautiful, beautiful Royal Caribbean's Allure of the Seas. And this year we'll be in Jamaica and Haiti and Cozumel. And when we're in port, you go play and boogie. And when we're at sea, I work you. This year, next January, joining me will be Joan Stewart, the publicity hound, Amy Collins, who knows lots about, especially traditional type of publishing and distribution. Joel Friedlander, the book designer, will be joining us this year. Kelly Johnson will be with us, who is just one of my favorite geek girls. She's a regular guest on AuthorU, Your Guide to Book Publishing. And Kelly's going to really dive into what virtual assistants and outsourcing can do for you, when to do it, what to expect, how to control it, etc. So all the information is on publishingatsea.com. Join us. It's only for all the workshops. All your taxes are included, all your gratuities, and you have a balcony room. Cost is $16.95 a person. We would love to have you. We have limited space, and there's only half of the cabins are sold now. Early bird ends on June 30th. That's publishingatsea.com. Join Joel, Amy, Joan, Kelly, and myself, because we have a great time, but we learn a lot. So, Richard, you were just talking about an audiobook.
Yes, Captain Briles.
Captain Briles.
Exciting voyage to join.
Ahoy, mateys! We'll bring your pirate voice with us. When we were just talking about going into some of the really opening up the door of a variation of cost of obtaining a talent. What's it cost? And you said that when you put out a bid for an auditioning and you describe it as with all the steps you had mentioned, that you could have 50 to 100. But that wouldn't be for every type of request, would it?
No, because basically there are a couple of ways you can put your book out there as royalty share or as per finished hour. Royalty share means basically you're going to split. You get 40% if it's basically an exclusive contract with ACX, which means you sell your digital copies through Audible and Amazon, and you're limited. You cannot go out and do a CD version. If you sign that up, you get 40% of the royalty sales, royalty money from the sale of that audiobook. If it's an exclusive agreement, a non-exclusive agreement, that means you can sell your book other places, but you're only going to get 25% of the royalties of the audio version sold on Amazon and Audible and iTunes. So, bottom line is they take the bulk of the money because they're doing the bulk of the marketing for you. So that's how they justify it. And it's really no different than, in the other parts of the publishing world. Publishers, get a big share, more than the authors. It's the same in the audiobook world.
Well, that's an understatement.
Yeah. So your royalty share.
Richard, let me ask you this on this 40 and the 25% split. So you said that they're going to be getting that if it's ACX is the only the primary distribution channel to Amazon and iTunes and what's my other format? Audible.
Yeah.
That they'll be doing the marketing. What does that mean? Because I've heard more people say, "Oh yeah, we're going to do the marketing," and all they do is they take it and post it, and that's it. That is not marketing to me.
Yeah, you're right. That they don't do that much marketing. They will list your audiobook in the proper categories, subcategories, and if people buy similar books, it will come up as people have also bought this book. So that type of Amazon type of marketing. Sometimes they will run specials, especially for your Kindle version, get the audiobook version for $1, that type of thing, which doesn't help you a lot, but it does get eyeballs on your books that way. So they do a lot of cross promotions of the Kindle or paperback or hardcover versions of the book along with the audiobook version. Audible will do reviews of books and promote them that way sometimes from within audible.com. But usually they're already selling well by the time they get a review. If you're going in with a book that is not a top seller on Amazon already, the challenge of marketing is going to be a great one, just as it is for your regular title.
Okay, so if and then on the non-exclusive side, I mean, with the ACX, the 40%, that means they are the only people who sell audio. You don't make CDs on your side and sell them in the back of the room. Is that what I heard, or on your website? Is that correct?
Well, yeah, you basically can't sell a different version on your website. You can link to your book, of course, on Amazon and Audible and iTunes and have it sold that way. But you can't sell CDs of your book unless you do a non-exclusive agreement for the lesser royalty share, for that 25%. That way you can go out and promote the audio version with the hardcover or paperback version that you have. And a lot of people choose to go that route. But if you go that route, you can't do royalty share on ACX. Let me explain the difference. As I said, there's two options. Per finished hour is paying up front. You pay the narrator between $50 an hour per finished hour. That means however long the book actually is. Up to $400 per finished hour, or even more. But the typical rate is $100 to $200 per finished hour. And for that money, if say your book is 2 hours long, and you pay your narrator a total of, at the $200 rate, $400, you get that narrator's complete recording. It's completely edited by the narrator, and it's mastered by the narrator to the ACX specs, to the standards that they have. So everything is actually done for you up front at that rate. If you do a royalty share, basically you're splitting 40% of that, what proceeds from that audiobook sale, 20-20, 50-50, 20% to you, 20% to your narrator for getting the same thing. The experienced narrators will not take royalty share books only because, unless a book is marketed heavily, it's not going to sell. And if you sell 100 audiobooks at, $10 each, it's not going to make enough money for that audiobook narrator to have spent the time in the studio and the 6 hours per finished hour it takes to get that book done. So you'll get.
My question is, let me just ask this, the question, because I know that people are trying to figure these numbers out. So the narrator, it gets paid on the finished hour, not his or her actual time in the studio?
That is correct.
Wow, what a deal.
It is a deal.
What a deal, everybody.
It really is. You'd think that, because the professionals do these things, that they would get, charged more than that. But really, when you have a short book especially, the fact that you can have a professional do an hour-long book for $100 or $200 or $250 or $300, whatever you decide would be best, that fits in your budget, your book is pretty much done, and you have a revenue stream out there, and you keep the 40% royalty share. You don't share that with the narrator.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that makes sense. Makes sense to me. So, but you do have additional cost outside of the narrator. You do have the actual studio time you're using, correct?
Only if you're no, that is not correct. If you are going through ACX completely and having a professional record it in their own home recording studio, that is included in that $200 per finished hour. So you do not have additional costs. The only things you need are a cover that meets the specs that ACX has, the graphic art, and the manuscript to provide to the narrator, and the time it takes to review the auditions, approve an audition, and go through the ACX process. And it actually is a relatively easy process. So it's not as difficult as most people think to get an audiobook professionally done.
No, it sounds, I'm crunching the numbers, and we're going to run into our final break here. But so you could create an entire audio. I was trying to do, because here's a question. Let's say you have a 200-page nonfiction book that's, no fantastic bells and whistles. And then when we come back, Richard, I'd like to say if you can give me a guesstimate of how much hours would be involved in that actual narration. We'll be right back. We're talking about audiobooks, giving your book a voice today. This is Judith Briles, and you're listening to AuthorU, your guide to book publishing.
This is your guide to book publishing. Everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask. With your host, Dr. Judith Briles. And we'll be right back with more great information right after these.
The book shepherding concept is simple. The publishing world is changing, and so must you. You need an experienced shepherd and a guide to partner with you as you create, strategize, develop, publish, and achieve your publishing goals. You can't do it alone without paying the price. You can spend your money creating a book that turns out to be so-so, or you can create a book that looks and feels classy, builds your brand, and is a financial success, a bestseller. It's your choice. You choose. You need the book shepherd. Publishing is riddled with obstacles, sometimes nightmares for the author. You don't need problems. You want solutions. Dr. Judith Briles will shepherd you through the maze and the chaos. At times, she's had to step in and rescue a book that has been sabotaged by a publisher or by a publishing service provider, or sometimes even the author themselves. Judith Briles is the book shepherd if you want to create a book with no regrets. Give her a call today. 303-885-2207. That's 303-885-2207. Or email her at judith@briles.com. By the way, Briles is spelled B-R-I-L-E-S. Follow Judith on Twitter at My Book Shepherd and on Facebook at The Book Shepherd.
This is the TogiNet Radio Network. Radio with a cutting edge.
At Total Printing Systems, customer service is our priority. We are located in Southern Illinois. Our employees have an average of 18 years experience and know that customer relationships are important to our continued success. We have been a short-run book printer for nearly 40 years and always stay at the forefront of technology. Our niche is from 1 to 5,000 copies. Today, we offer digital, black and white, and 4-color high-speed inkjet printing, a cost-effective way to introduce color into your short-run titles. We, of course, offer traditional offset printing as well. Bindery is done in-house, from adhesive case binding to PUR perfect binding to mechanical binding of all types, including side sewing. We provide warehousing, kitting, distribution, inventory management, a new print-on-demand facility, streaming browser-based ebooks, and bookstore. Call us at 1-800-465-5200 for a quote on your next book project. You can also visit our website at www.tps1.com.
Welcome back to your guide to book publishing. Everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask. If you want to write and publish a book, if you want to be successful as an author, your guide to book publishing, everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask, is for you. Stay tuned and you'll hear about statistics, scenarios, and strategies on what to do now to get you published. So let's get back to the show. And here again is your host, Dr. Judith Briles.
Well, money, money, money. Everyone's trying to figure out exactly what it's cost. And with some of the things that Richard's gone over with us, as we talked about audiobooks, yeah, you could do this all yourself. But the way I am now taking it away, that what you pay for is this finished hour. A lot of times narrators actually have their own home studios, so that cuts down a lot of the outside. You can still, Richard, if I understand correctly, even if you work with someone who doesn't go into and use the ACX, for example, facilities, that you can still launch it through ACX. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yeah, you'll find your narrator on ACX, and basically choose the right person for the job, and they will record it for either that royalty share or the per finished hour.
Well, I hear you. It sounds good to me. So let's talk about real, I left you with the deal. Let's say I have a couple 100-page nonfiction book. There's nothing that should provide major hiccups. All words are pronounceable, which is always a challenge. You know that. They're right. Pronounceable. So what would do you go like by a 200-page, or do you go by the word count to do a guesstimate of how many hours you would have to put into something, or what a finished product would be?
The word count is more accurate. 10,000 words, say, would be about a 1-hour book. If your average reading at 3 words per second. So, bottom line is add up the words, and obviously you can get that very quickly, the number of words in your script. And that tells you if it's at a rate of 10,000 words per hour, that tells you what your cost is going to be. And to get a good professional narrator, you're really going to be at the $200 and above per finished hour level. And if you advertise it that way on ACX, you'll get some very good auditions.
And when I hear 10,000 words, because one of my whole themes is short is the new black, that we have to really reduce the size. I mean, no more would I write a 400-page nonfiction book, which I have with my name on them. And I also have 200-page books. I'm even going even smaller now. So when I hear, 10,000 words, which 15,000 words could be 100 pages, depending upon the size of the book. It could be 175 pages. But when you're hearing those kind of, or less, when you're hearing those kind of things, that 125, 150 page book, maybe max 30,000 words, that I'm hearing 3 hours, why wouldn't you hire a professional to do it for just a few $100? That doesn't make sense to me why you would not.
I agree with you. I think the almost all of the narrators, the experienced narrators on ACX, will only do books when they're paid per finished hour. There is an exception. There is also a stipend situation where ACX, for a good selling book, and they determine what's good selling, will pay $100 an hour to the narrator in addition to getting a royalty split. But that's very rare, and that's usually only for the better selling books. But that is the third way of getting paid that I wanted to mention. But per finished hour, you will get better auditions, more professional auditions, from narrators, who can turn your project around quickly. And that's the other thing too, is you don't want it to take, months and months. You want it to be done in a month, say 30 days to 60 days tops for your book.
Well, let me ask you this, Richard. Is there certain questions that authors should be asking a narrator? In the interview.
How many projects do they have currently? Obviously you can look up the bio on ACX and see how many books that narrator has done. But how many do they have in the pipeline right now? How long will it take? Because you can set the dates that the book is due when you agree to that contract with that narrator. If you agree it's 30 days, you agree it's 60 days for the finished product, then they are tied to that. And if they don't get the book done by that time, you can cancel the contract.
Is there a reasonable turnaround?
A reasonable turnaround for a 2-hour book, say, would be a minimum of a month, because, people are working on other things beyond your book. Most people will say, 60 days on the outside for a 2-hour book.
Okay.
So that's reasonable expectation. So you want to make sure that that's clear and that they're going to follow the schedule that ACX lays out. The first 15 minutes of a book are due. You can set a date for that. Normally it's a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks out for the first 15 minutes to be done. So you can hear the first 15 minutes of your book, make any suggestions to the narrator and say, you need to read a little faster, or you mispronounced a couple things, that type of thing. And then once you approve it, then they can move on and record the rest of the book. But you have that approval process at the 15-minute mark. And then, you set a date. And, if things happen, you can be flexible and change the due date on your book if it takes a little longer for the narrator to do it. But the narrator wants continuing business. Let them know that you have more than one possible book to do, and you will get better service because they will want to do the rest of your books. So they will be faster and pay more attention to you if you have more than one book to do.
And it seems to me, though, if I was a professional narrator and I started on a project, and let's say I do the first 15 minutes and I'm really hooked on it, I would want to go faster on it. I would really want to dive into it. My other concern is, I can tell you, since I work on books all the time, that if I can't keep going on a book, or if the author keeps dropping in and out and seems to, all of a sudden has all the time in the world, that for me, it's when I drop working on a book and I have to come back and restart over, it's tough, because it's like you have to revisit the whole thing again.
Yes, it is. So you really want to keep your deadlines tight, and that's why I say, 30 to 60 days for a shorter book is perfectly reasonable. And you can ask the narrator to post the chapters as they go, so you can see, visiting your page, where they are, what kind of progress they're making.
Right, and that makes it exciting. Well, there's a lot of really good information here. I've learned a lot. I hope our listeners has, and we certainly have a couple more minutes here. So let's see if we can jump into something. What are the things that authors should avoid, Richard, as they go down this path?
Don't take the first pretty voice that you hear. Make sure, as we were talking about, that this person is going to have time to do your book. If you can, listen to a recording of a book this narrator has done before, because they might do a great audition, but it doesn't always, tell you right off the bat that they're going to do a good job on the complete book. Pay close attention to the technical quality of the audition. If they have dogs barking in the background, or you can hear the air conditioner, this will never pass muster with ACX. You will not be able to get the quality you need for that audiobook. So what you hear in that audition is usually what you're going to get. A lot of these narrators are recording in their homes in, not a professional recording booth. They're recording in a walk-in closet with, clothes around them for sound deadening. So, and they may not
love
have
that picture.
They may, they may not have anything more, than a USB mic hooked up to their laptop, instead of having professional quality condenser mics and professional quality preamps and the equipment that you really need to get a really good quality recording. So watch out for the technical stuff. That's a killer.
Always, and I think that is really important. There's so many things that you can do on your own, and there's certainly a ton of software out here that allow authors to edit and do a variety of things. But I guess I'm kind of old-fashioned, that I would love to get out there and, my time is worth X amount of dollars. I think all authors need to think about that. What is your time really worth? And if you can trade off, and the costs, as you really explained them, I'm thinking, boy, you're crazy not to. I have one other question. We have 1 minute to go. But when there are voices, when you have lots of voices, especially different gender voices, is it better to have two different voices, or is it really okay to have the male do all the female or the female do all the male?
It really is okay to have the male do the female voices and vice versa, because you're suspending your disbelief right off the bat in an audiobook.
All right, Richard, we're going to have to close off. Let me tell everyone, you can find more about Richard at RR Voice. That stands for Richard Rieman, www.rrvoice.com. Look in to have a professional do your audiobooks. It will make a huge difference. This is Judith Briles. We'll be with you next week. Have a great writing and publishing week.
Thank you for being a part of your guide to book publishing. Everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask. With your host, Dr. Judith Briles. Each week of